Hi, and welcome to Straight to the Points. I'm your host, Courtney. I'm here to help you take your family on amazing vacations for almost free with the help of credit card points and miles. I'm a mom and primary care physician, and I believe that travel is an important way to restore, connect, and celebrate. This podcast is designed for busy people who want to learn how to take unforgettable trips with minimal out-of-pocket cost and don't want to devote a ton of time to figuring out the world of points and miles. I'll get you your first trip booked in just a few months. Let's get straight to the points. Hi, and welcome to Straight to the Points. Today we're talking about how to redeem your Chase points to get the most value out of them. This is one of my favorite topics in points and miles because when you learn how to effectively redeem your points to get great value from them, you're able to unlock so much more free travel. And it really makes the difference between being able to afford one trip a year to being able to afford a whole bunch of trips a year, earning the same amount of points just based on how smartly you're able to redeem them. It's actually not that tricky, you just need to know what to do. So there's two main ways that you can redeem Chase points. You can either book through the Chase portal, or you can transfer your points out to specific airline or hotel partners. There's no one right way to use the points, but in general, you're going to get the most value from your points if you transfer them to partners and then book with those partners specifically. That's really the key to getting more value for your points. It's a bit of a hard truth in the points and miles world that earning points is a little bit simpler than redeeming them effectively. Once you have opened a card, earned the sign-on bonus, and are ready to book a trip, this is the part where a lot of people get stuck. Either they don't know how to effectively redeem the points and wind up making a portal booking and spending all of their points on not that much worth of travel, or they get analysis paralysis and they're looking at all of the different options, becoming sort of obsessed with getting the best deal, and then wind up booking nothing because they feel like they have to get it right. Let's get into some of the specifics about how to use those Chase points. These principles will also apply to other points currencies as well. So you can apply these basic principles to using Amex points, Capital One, whatever it is you happen to start with. It's just that I really recommend Chase points for beginners. So we will focus on this specifically applying to the Chase currency. We'll talk first about when you might do a portal booking and how to do it. And then we'll talk about transferring Chase points to partners, why that's a good idea, and how to do it effectively. We'll talk about portal bookings first. This is what most people are familiar with when they first get into points and miles. It's the simplest way to use points, but it also has some drawbacks. Portal bookings can be used to book a wide variety of different hotels and flights using your Chase points. There's some pros of this and some cons as well. Pros are that it's really simple. So you just use the Chase app itself and do a search in there, sort of like you would with an Expedia or other booking platform, and then use your points to book when you go to cash out. Very easy. You also can book some things with the portal that you wouldn't be able to book by transferring points out. For example, Chase has a list of the partners that they transfer their points to. So I could book a Hyatt hotel or a Marriott hotel using Chase points if I'm transferring out. But I wouldn't be able to book a hotel like, say, Four Seasons by transferring points to Four Seasons because Chase doesn't transfer to Four Seasons. The pro of the portal is that you can book those certain hotels that aren't included in the transfer out options. So if I really want to stay in a Four Seasons hotel, for example, then I could book in the portal using my Chase points. And so the portal does open up booking options for things that wouldn't be available by transferring the points out. In addition to having access to additional hotel brands or other airlines through the Chase portal versus transferring out to partners, you also have access to other types of travel. For example, you could book a rental car through the Chase portal using your Chase points. This isn't typically a great value with regards to your points, but it's a great hack if you really want to get the cost of your travel down to $0. Another pro and con of booking in the Chase portal is that the points have sort of a fixed value. What do I mean by this? Typically, if you're booking in the Chase portal, your points are worth 1 cent per point. So the amount of points you use to make that booking is really just tied directly to the cash price, and you're paying 1 point per cent of cost in the travel. There are exceptions to this. So Chase does have something called Points Boost, which is just certain things when you look at your search results where there'll be a little icon and it will say Points Boost next to it. Those specific hotel brands or other things that you're booking like flights will give you more value for your points. That will be either 1.5 to 1.75 cents if you're using the Chase Sapphire Preferred, or 1.75 to up to 2 cents per point if you're using the Chase Sapphire Reserve. That's a pro and a con because getting 1 cent per point, generally not an awesome value, but if you find something on Points Boost that you're wanting to book, getting up to 2 cents per point, that's pretty good. So with this recent change to how Chase does their bookings, adding this Points Boost feature, which is relatively new, it does let you get more value for your points. It's not available every time for every booking. The main downside of booking in the portal is the lack of value in most cases. So if the thing you're trying to book isn't falling under that Points Boost, you're getting only that 1 cent per point, not an awesome value. You can still do that though, and you're still earning free travel if you book at 1 cent per point. So although many people in the points and mile world really say portal bookings are bad, they can be good. It's still a way to earn free travel. There also are some glitches that can happen related to using a third-party booking service like the portal. This is very similar to if you book, say, a hotel on Expedia or booking.com, another booking service. Anytime you're booking through a third party, it gets a little more complicated when things go wrong. If you have an issue with your booking, it's harder to know whether you should be contacting Chase because of it was booked through the portal, or if contacting the hotel directly. And sometimes if something goes wrong, your reservation isn't showing up at the hotel will say, well, we can't do anything about that. It wasn't booked directly through us. So there is a definite downside to booking through the portal if things don't go perfectly with your reservation. I have a recent example of how things can get a little difficult sometimes when booking through the portal. I recently booked a stay in the Adirondacks for my family, and I wound up booking through the Chase portal. Now, the reason that I did this is that it's a rural area and there really weren't any chain hotels around. So I wasn't able to transfer my points out to Marriott, IHG, Hyatt, any of those because the hotels were all just kind of mom and pop type smaller hotels. So I looked to the Chase portal to see what was available. And when I did, I found a few options, but none of them had the Points Boost attached to them. So I was going to get only 1 cent per point for that booking. Rather than spending more valuable Chase points than I wanted to on this stay, I wound up instead booking through the Chase portal using cash. So instead of just booking directly with the hotel's website, I went through the Chase portal and booked using cash. I then earned a lot of extra points by doing that because Chase wants me to use their portal. The downside of this is that when we showed up to the hotel at 10 p.m., there was no one there. It turns out this is a contactless small mom and pop motel, and they don't actually have anyone in the lobby. And so I didn't have a way to get into our room. They did have a sign posted with a number to call after hours, so I did. And it turned out this contactless system is what they used, and typically they email the people that book ahead of time and give them a code to get into their room. It turned out that because I had booked through the portal, the hotel didn't have any of my contact information. Now, of course, Chase had all of my contact information. I have multiple credit cards with them. They have my phone number, my email address. All of that's tied to my Chase account. But for whatever reason, there was some kind of glitch where that contact information for me did not get passed on to the hotel when I made the booking. And when I made the booking, there was no area where I would have entered that information to pass on to the hotel. So I got a confirmation email, but what I didn't get was the separate email from the hotel saying, this is your room number, here's your code, go ahead and just check yourself right in when you get there. So I had to bother someone after hours at home. It all worked out. They just gave me the code over the phone and we got into the room. But it did add a few minutes to trying to figure all this out. And my family was in the car very confused as to why I wasn't coming out with the key while I was on the phone with these people. Ultimately, again, worked out fine, but that issue would not have happened if I hadn't booked through the portal. Another downside of booking through a portal is that you might not get credit towards status with a specific hotel or airline or benefits of status that you have when you're booking through a portal. I won't get into the specifics of this too much because it's different for each portal and each program, but just know if you're working towards status with a program, say Hyatt, and you book through a portal, depending on which portal you use, you might not get credit towards your status or the benefits that you have when booking through the portal. You decide. Status might not matter to you, and you might decide you want to do quite a few bookings through the portal. There's not a wrong way to do this. There are ways, though, that you can stretch your points for further value. As I mentioned before, I actually like to use the portal to earn points with cash bookings. So anything I'm booking that I can't do by transferring out to a partner, I'm booking through a Chase portal, and then I earn extra points. You get 8 times points with my Chase Sapphire Reserve. For example, that Adirondack hotel booking I did. The hotel was about $200, and I got 8 times points on that. Quite a bit of points for a relatively inexpensive cash stay. For the Chase portal specifically, if you happen to have the Chase Sapphire Reserve, which is the higher annual fee version of the card, you do get $250 every 6 months towards booking specifically hotel chains that fall under the Edit, which is basically one of their luxury hotel umbrellas. Now, I've actually had trouble using this credit. I find that the Edit hotels are quite pricey. And so when you go to make cash bookings, you're getting $250 off. That's great. But if you're staying for 2 nights and the room turns out to be $800 a night, well, suddenly getting $250 off the stay isn't that great a value. There are, though, Edit hotels that are less expensive, and I've heard of people getting some really good deals on this. It's just I have been able to find a great one for someone that I'm looking to stay in the near future. Let's shift gears and talk about how to book with Chase points by transferring points out to partners. First, we'll talk about hotels. There are 3 hotel chains that you can transfer your Chase points to: Marriott, IHG, and Hyatt. Let's talk about IHG first. This includes some luxury brands like Kimpton and Intercontinental, and also some more budget brands that you are likely familiar with, such as Holiday Inn or Staybridge Suites. There's some really awesome deals to be had with IHG points, but I generally don't recommend transferring your Chase points to IHG. And that's because the IHG points just aren't as valuable as the points through, say, Hyatt, the other option. One of the basic principles in points comes into play here, and that's that not all points are created equal. So an IHG point, a Hyatt point, and a Marriott point aren't worth the same in cash value in general when you're thinking about averages. So while IHG is a great brand and I love staying with them, I generally don't recommend transferring Chase points to IHG. Similarly with Marriott, really not a great deal to transfer Chase points out to Marriott. You would get more value for each point by booking a hotel in the portal in most cases than you would with transferring Chase points out to Marriott. Now, let's delve into where I do recommend you transfer your Chase points to, and that is Hyatt. Hyatt is my most favorite hotel chain and my favorite way to use Chase points. I will likely do a deep dive episode about why Hyatt is amazing and all of the specific things that you might want to know about booking with Hyatt, but let's just quickly go through why Hyatt is amazing. There are so many incredible things about Hyatt, but really the basic reason that I and many of the people in Points and Miles are kind of Hyatt obsessed is because it is incredibly easy to get very high outsized value from points when you transfer points out from Chase and book with Hyatt. Hyatt is really one of the reasons why Chase points are so beginner friendly, because if you earn a bunch of Chase points, you can transfer them to Hyatt and always get a great deal. The reason that it's so easy to get great value from the Hyatt points is that they have a fixed award chart. So essentially for each Hyatt hotel, they rank them in terms of categories, and then there's a specific fixed value that you will pay per night, per room. It'll vary a little bit depending on peak or off-peak times, but that's all pre-published. So you might know a room at a certain hotel is, say, 20,000 points a night, and then on peak times, it's 25,000 points a night. These fixed values for points bookings at Hyatt are really helpful because you know you're always getting a great value and you can plan ahead. You can look at a specific hotel and say, okay, I'll need 20,000 points a night for this stay, save that many points, make your booking. This is actually really unique to Hyatt. The other hotel chains that you can book with points typically don't have these fixed award charts. And so the rates can fluctuate wildly from night to night and depending on the season and depending on whether there's a big event going on. So say there's a concert in Toronto. I went to see Taylor Swift in Toronto, and the hotels through, say, Marriott, their points prices were jacked up during that time, just like the cash prices were. If I was lucky enough to have found a Hyatt for that concert, then I would have gotten that Hyatt at the same number of points as it is any other night, other than just the basic peak or off-peak prices. So you can get really awesome deals by booking with points through Hyatt, where you're paying a price that is fixed and not tied to that jacked up cash value price for things like holidays and big events like concerts. I also love Hyatt because they are consistently nice, clean, and have really great customer service. You pretty much know what you're getting when you go to a Hyatt. There's also a pretty good range of properties, so you can book a Hyatt house or a Hyatt place for as little as 5,000 points a night, and they're always, again, nice, clean, great customer service. You can also book really luxury properties with Hyatt points, so there's a huge range of what you can do with those points, but you're always getting a great deal. The other major perk with Hyatt and booking with points is that there are absolutely no fees, no resort fees, no taxes. When you book a Hyatt hotel with points, you are truly paying $0 out of pocket, which is really incredible. And again, kind of unique to this program. There are other programs where you'll book with points and you'll have to pay the resort fee in cash. So that can be like $45 to $75 a day, depending on where you're staying, which still a great deal if you're otherwise getting the stay for free. But Hyatt makes it so nice to truly pay $0 for a stay. Let's talk a little bit about specific examples of how you can book Hyatt stays by transferring Chase points out. We'll talk about first my very first points booking, which was Kansas City Hyatt Place. This stay was 15,000 points for 3 nights and cost truly $0 because there were, again, no taxes or fees, no resort fees. I paid that 15,000 points and I got a 3-night stay for free. This stay would have cost $585. So I got a redemption value of 3.9 cents per point, which is really awesome value for a first booking. I'm not a point booking savant, especially wasn't in the beginning. This was my very first booking, and I share this because it just highlights how incredibly easy it is to get great value for your points just by using the simple trick of transferring Chase points to Hyatt. Over the summer, I also made a booking at the Thompson, Denver, which is one of Hyatt's more luxury brands, Thompson. That cost 40,000 points for 2 nights. And the cash price on that would have been $966. That comes out to a value of 2.4 cents per point redeemed, which is also great value. This stay was really awesome. It was a really hip downtown hotel with a gorgeous bar, with live music, and was in a really awesome, desirable location with lots of fun shops and restaurants that we could easily walk to. So for just 40,000 points, I was able to get almost $1,000 worth of hotel nights. My last example of what I've personally used Chase points transferred to Hyatt to book really highlights another cool feature of the Hyatt program, which is that you can use points to outright book suites or other upgraded rooms. So this isn't available in all programs, but with Hyatt specifically, if there's suites available, you can actually book a suite for more points versus other programs where you might just be able to book a standard room and then have to hope for an upgrade, which usually only happens if you have status in that program, which can take a lot of time to build up. So for Hyatt, without any status, I was able to book a king balcony suite at the Hyatt Regency Hill Country. This was an amazing property. We had a great time here, and I think my family and I will probably go back here. This was an expensive stay. I saved up a lot of points for a while to do this. It was 189,000 points for 6 nights. But what's awesome about this is I truly paid no money. When I left the hotel, I had only spent money on food, but had spent absolutely $0 for our lodging, which is wild. I didn't have to pay taxes and fees. I didn't have to pay resort fees like other hotels often charge. And it really was a phenomenal, family-friendly, gorgeous property with lots of fun activities included. The value of this was $9,069 for that same 6-night stay in the suite, which I just wouldn't have booked. We wouldn't have been able to take that trip. But with the help of points, I took that trip for $0 cash. Now, this was an incredible value. I got 4.8 cents per point. Again, not because I'm particularly amazing about this, but because it's just really easy to get great value through Hyatt. What if I hadn't known about transferring points out to Hyatt and I had found this same hotel stay in the Chase portal? You might think the cost would probably be relatively similar. That is actually not the case. I was shocked when I looked into this. I looked for that same hotel, same dates for a portal booking. And the cost in the portal booking for that same 6-night stay, instead of being 189,000 points, was 471,000 points plus $340 cash, which is just not even comparable at all to what I paid. And so this just really highlights how a lot of the time you're going to get really outsized value by transferring the points out and then booking directly with a program. For booking hotel stays with Chase points, that's really it. Hyatt is the one. I didn't focus on the other programs because the same value just isn't there. And in case you're wondering, yes, pretty much all of my Chase points get spent on Hyatt bookings. I do sometimes transfer Hyatt points out to airlines, and that really can be a great option. But in my case, I typically use my Amex points mostly for flights, and then I use my Chase points pretty much all for Hyatt because of the great values that I can get. Let's transition to talk a bit about what airlines you can book using Chase points and how to get great deals there, because there are great opportunities for deals here. There are a whole bunch of airlines that you can transfer Chase points to, but I'll kind of focus on just a few of them where you can get the best values. Here's some of the programs you can transfer points to: United, Southwest, JetBlue, British Airways, Singapore Airlines, Virgin Atlantic, Air Canada, and Flying Blue, which encompasses Air France and KLM. Some of these airlines I was not familiar with at all before I got into points and miles, but they can be really useful even if you haven't booked with them before or haven't even heard of them. In terms of booking flights using Chase points, Southwest is one of the programs that is a great way to get good value, but also is super easy and beginner friendly. I have used Southwest points that I've gotten from transferring Chase points to the Southwest program to book, for example, tickets to Denver. I was able to get 3 tickets to Denver for just over 19,000 points, which would have been a $312 purchase, and that's a value of 1.6 cents per point. So not the crazy high value that I was getting with the Hyatt stays I talked about earlier, but certainly good, solid value for those points. Southwest has gotten a lot of bad rap recently. You've probably heard about how checked bags are no longer free, where you used to get 2 free checked bags. There's now seat assignments, which you may or may not like. And there's just been a lot of sort of bad press about Southwest recently. I still really love Southwest with regards to booking with points specifically, because really there's just some great opportunity for value there. Southwest bookings are in general really simple and a good way to get a solid deal on your points. In general, with how Southwest points pricing works, you're not going to get a bad deal. You're also not going to get a super amazing deal. You also can look through the portal for Southwest bookings. I've heard of cases where sometimes Southwest bookings are actually cheaper through the portal. Now, remember that with the portal bookings, there's downsides. You can't actually select your seat assignment right away when you book through the portal. You have to later contact Southwest and pick your seats. So that's a downside to doing a portal booking for a flight, but it could be cheaper. If you wind up being a Southwest loyalist or you become loyal to Southwest through points and miles, it's definitely worth considering a co-branded card, which is a card that earns specifically Southwest points issued through Chase. In general, co-branded cards aren't the ones I typically recommend for beginners because it's generally good to earn flexible points first, points like Chase points that you can transfer out to many different airlines and hotels. But if you travel a lot domestically, getting a Southwest co-branded card might make sense, especially if you're in a Southwest hub. That's because with the cards, you get specific perks. For example, you can get free checked bags with a card or free seat assignments with a card. So you can save quite a lot of money by just holding a specific credit card for an annual fee that's less than $100. Southwest also offers pretty much the best deal on flights that's around, called the Southwest Companion Pass. There are definitely whole podcast episodes out there dedicated to getting the Southwest Companion Pass, and I might later publish an episode about how to do this if there's demand. So if you're interested in learning more about the Southwest Companion Pass, let me know. But the general gist of it is that if you earn 135,000 points in 1 year, with Southwest, you earn a companion pass for the rest of that calendar year and the whole following calendar year. During that time that you have the companion pass, you and your companion, whoever you designate, get to fly together without added cost. So if I earn a companion pass, I book a points flight or a cash flight, I just attach my companion to that flight and that person flies for no additional points or cost. You can use that as many times as you want within the time that you hold that companion pass, which can be incredible in terms of value. There's a lot of strategy that goes into how to earn the companion pass and making sure you earn it at the right time of year to be able to hold it for the longest amount of time. So I don't generally recommend earning a Southwest companion pass as the very beginning of your points journey, but as a beginner, something that you do want to know now is that if you're considering getting a companion pass, you need to keep yourself under 524. What do I mean by that? 524 is Chase's unofficial rule in terms of how many credit cards they will let you have open and still approve you for new cards. So if you've already opened 5 credit cards, not just with Chase, but with anyone in the past 24 months, Chase will not approve you for any cards. This is, again, not a written rule, it's unofficial, and there's lots of data points pointing to this. So if you think you might want to earn a Southwest Companion Pass in the next year or two, you should keep yourself under 5 cards in 24 months so that you're able to apply for a Southwest card. That was a little bit more about Southwest than I meant to delve into, but it is really important to know that the Companion Pass is incredible and that that's one of the reasons why the Southwest program has so much value and why transferring your Chase points to Southwest very well may be a good idea for you. If you're looking to book domestic flights, JetBlue and United can also be good ways to get decent deals on flights. Neither of these tend to offer super incredible value, but also it's a way to get free flights. And so those can be good ways to use your Chase points as well. I'd like to also focus on a few of the airlines that are not US based that you can use to book with your Chase points. Virgin Atlantic is a great one to know about to get incredible value. Virgin Atlantic has lots of different flights from the US to Europe, and so that can be a great way to use your Chase points. They in general tend to have very low points costs for flights. But the downside is that they tend to sometimes have higher taxes and fees. Whereas with Southwest, United, JetBlue, the US-based airlines, when you book with Chase points transferred out, you're in general paying $5.60 for taxes and fees per flight. Amazing. With Virgin Atlantic and the other international airlines, you're paying higher taxes and fees. So it might be $50, $200, or even more if you're booking business class flights. But in general, you can still get great value with this. With Virgin Atlantic, you can book flights from the US to Europe for as low as 6,000 points. With those flights, you might have some higher taxes and fees, so maybe on the order of $200 for an economy flight. But when you're using so few points and you're not paying the full economy price, it really works out to a great deal still. The other cool thing about Virgin Atlantic is that you can actually book other airline flights with them. I won't go too much into how to do this now because it's not a super beginner strategy, but you can actually book flights through one airline through another airline's program. So, for example, you can transfer Chase points to Virgin Atlantic and then through Virgin Atlantic book a Delta flight, a flight through Air France or KLM. And the reason that this is valuable and that you would want to do this is that the points prices can be vastly different for the same flight depending on who you book it through. So, for example, if I'm traveling on a domestic Delta flight and the flight booked through Delta is 45,000 points, if I look for that same flight, a domestic flight, not going anywhere in Europe, just 2 points within the US, that same flight that would have been that higher price with Delta, with booking through Virgin Atlantic could be significantly lower. It might be 15,000 points. You might pay a bit more in taxes and fees, but again, it's often worth it if the amount of points you're paying is way, way lower. This general principle is called booking with partners. So that just means anytime that you're transferring points to one airline, such as Virgin Atlantic, and then you're booking not a Virgin Atlantic flight, but a flight with another airline that's a partner with Virgin Atlantic. So, for example, booking a Delta flight through the Virgin Atlantic program. Booking with partners isn't that tricky, but it's definitely not a beginner strategy. You're probably going to want to make your first couple of points bookings without using this booking with partners concept. But it's really helpful to know that the option is there and know that you can use points in one ecosystem. So for example, the Chase ecosystem to transfer out and book with things that aren't those direct transfer partners. For example, I can book a Delta flight with Chase points, not using the portal, but transferring out to Virgin Atlantic and then booking with Delta. So just knowing that that exists and that's something that you can learn about later once you're more comfortable with this concept in general. I'll have a whole episode where I talk about booking with partners, but in general, just know that that exists and it can be a really great way to get good deals. If you're looking to go from the US to Europe, two other programs to be aware of are Air Canada and Flying Blue. Air Canada is great, especially if you happen to be like me and live in Western or upstate New York, because we live so close to Toronto. So if you're wanting to go to Europe, doing a quick drive to Toronto and then flying direct from Toronto to whatever European city you're looking to go to is a great way to get there quickly. Flying Blue is also a great program if you want to go over to Europe. Flying Blue encompasses both Air France and KLM, and you can transfer your Chase points over to Flying Blue to book flights. This program is especially great if you are traveling with a family. They actually offer 25% off the points price for kids, which is wild. really most airlines, you're paying the same amount regardless of who's sitting in whatever seat. But getting 25% off is really nice, especially if you're traveling with multiple kids. The other cool thing about their program is they have really great monthly deals that they publish. So every month they'll come out with those monthly deals, and those will be discounted points prices on flights. And so you can get some really good value with transferring Chase points over to Flying Blue and using that to book flights to Europe. Let's talk a little bit about the nitty-gritty logistics of how to transfer points out to partners. I feel like this is where people get stuck a lot. There's a lot of information out there about how to do this in terms of just transfer your points and then do this and that. But people often get stuck on, well, how do I actually do that? How do I transfer the points? So the first thing you have to do is create a loyalty account for the program that you want to transfer your points to. So if you're like me and you want to transfer your points to Hyatt, then you're going to go to Hyatt's website, make a Hyatt account, and then get a World of Hyatt loyalty number. Then you're going to go to your Chase app, scroll to the bottom right where it says More, scroll down to where it says Rewards and Benefits, click on Redeem Points, which is on the right, and then select either the Chase Sapphire Reserve or Preferred for the credit card on the top drop down. This only applies if you have more than one Chase card. If you only have a Chase Sapphire Preferred, skip that step. And then you're going to scroll down to where it says Transfer Points. You'll see there's a lot of other options and it takes several clicks to get here. So this is not the way that most people are using their points. Again, most people are just clicking and booking in the portal. But because you're here and you're learning these tricks, you're going to transfer your points out. So once you click Transfer Points, you'll then see a list of all of the hotel and airline partners that you can transfer your points to. You'll just click on that program and then you'll have to link your accounts. So it will ask for your World of Hyatt number that you just got if you're booking with Hyatt, for example. That links the account and you only have to do that once. Once you link your Hyatt account or any specific loyalty account to your Chase account, you don't have to do it again later. You then just enter how many points you want to transfer and then the points move. Something really important to know is that transfers are usually instant, but aren't always instant. So if you're trying to book something that's in really high demand, this can become a problem at times. If you find the thing you want to book, you transfer, and then it takes hours or very rarely days for your points to hit into that loyalty account, you can lose the thing you're trying to book. Now, I don't say this to scare you, but just so that you know it's a possibility. In most cases, the transfers actually are instant, even though it will warn you it might not be instant. And then the points will land in your loyalty account, and then you'll book that actual trip through Hyatt, if it's Hyatt that you're booking with. I can post a video on my Instagram that shows how this actually looks in the app to help guide you through it in case you're a more visual learner. Some other little tidbits to know are that Chase points can be combined within a household, but you have to do it via phone. There's not another way around this right now. But if you and your partner both earn Chase points and then you want to book a stay using points from both of you, you can make a phone call to Chase and they can transfer the points really quickly from one account to another. Hyatt points, once you've transferred them from your Chase account, can actually be combined with anyone. This is really nice. They don't have to be in your same household. So if you're booking a Hyatt stay, say with a bunch of friends, you guys can transfer Hyatt points to one another. One person books it, and then the other person sends points to that person for their portion of the trip. The only thing is that you have to do this with submitting an actual paper form, which is sort of strange, but it is possible to combine them, and it's actually not that difficult. Another cool tip to know about for both using Chase points and using other types of points like Amex or Capital One is transfer bonuses. These are promos when you will get more points than you started with when you transfer from Chase or whatever bank's program to a specific program. So for example, Virgin Atlantic might be having a 40% transfer bonus from Chase. So instead of transferring 1,000 Chase points and getting 1,000 Virgin Atlantic points, you transfer 1,000 Chase points and get 1,400 Virgin Atlantic points. This can be really helpful when you're trying to get the most for your points. An important thing to remember if you see one of these transfer bonuses and get really excited is that make sure you have a plan to use those points before you transfer them, because those transfers are one way. Once points have left your Chase account and gone to any specific partner like Flying Blue or Air Canada, you can't move them back to Chase or to any other program with very few exceptions. So make sure before you get really excited about a transfer bonus and transfer all your points that you actually have a trip in mind to book with that specific program. One final principle that I want to leave you with is knowing when you might not want to use your Chase points to book a trip. This is because Chase points are really valuable. I recommend starting with them because it's really easy to get good value. And so because of that, you might not want to use Chase points in a way where you don't get great value, because it'll be really easy to get great value by putting them to another use. So for example, there are lots of different programs that transfer to Flying Blue to book flights with Air France or KLM. So if you're planning a trip to Europe and you found a flight through Air France and you're ready to transfer points to Flying Blue, you might want to think before you transfer your Chase points. If you've only got Chase points, then go for it. Use those Chase points, book those flights. But if you've already started earning other types of points and you've got Amex points, Bilt points, Citi points, and Chase points available, you're probably going to want to use one of those other points currencies to get those Flying Blue points, because the Chase points are going to be worth more transferring them to Hyatt. This can also come into play when there's transfer bonuses. So say Amex is having a transfer bonus, you would in that case want to use through Amex, transfer to Flying Blue and get that bonus, get more of those points. But even if there's no transfer bonus, in general, if you can transfer from multiple different transferable points currencies to one, you're going to want to save your Chase points in most cases and use the other type of points first. A real life example of this principle for me came into play when I booked flights to San Antonio for myself and my family. We were flying from our small home airport to San Antonio. So really, it kind of had to be United, or else it was a really long circuitous route that I didn't want to take. So we knew we had to fly United. I didn't really want to use my Chase points to transfer to United because I wanted to save my Chase points to transfer to Hyatt for that awesome hotel stay I was telling you about at the Hyatt Regency Hill Country. So I thought, well, I have Amex points. What can I do with those? Looking at the places that you can transfer Amex points to, United isn't one of those options. Luckily, I had learned about booking through partners, and I knew that I could use Air Canada to book United flights. And Air Canada happens to also be a transfer partner of Amex. So instead of transferring my Chase points to United and booking that way, or transferring Chase points to Air Canada and booking that way, which would have been fewer Chase points than transferring to United directly, I took that third route and transferred Amex points to Air Canada to book that United flight. And by doing that, I saved a ton of points and I preserved my Chase points for the hotel stay. So I know that all seems a bit complicated. You don't actually have to be able to know all the intricacies of that right away. The important thing to keep in mind is just knowing your Chase points are really valuable, and so you want to be wise about how you spend them because it's possible to get really awesome value for them. I hope you're starting to see how you can use your Chase points to easily redeem for really high value. Booking in the portal is always a valid option, and you can get decent value there, especially if points boost is involved. But by transferring your points out and booking directly with a partner, you're getting the most for your hard-earned points, and you're not having to deal with some of the downsides of using a portal. I wish you luck with using those Chase points to book travel. And as always, if you have any questions, please shoot me an email or a DM. See you next time on Straight to the Points. Thank you for listening to Straight to the Points. If you're looking for more tips and tricks or travel inspiration, you can find me on Instagram at straighttothepoints.podcast. If you have any questions about earning or using your points, send me an email. I might include your question on a future episode. You can reach me at straighttothepoints.podcast@gmail.com. Please also send me your points success stories. I would love to hear from you. If you are thinking about applying for a points earning credit card, I would appreciate you using my referral links to sign up. Head to straighttothepointspodcast.com and click on card referral links. If you are getting value from this podcast, I would be so happy if you would leave me a 5-star review and a comment wherever you listen. If you want to further support the podcast, click on support on the website main menu, where there is a link to my Buy Me a Coffee account where you can leave me a tip to help support the podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time on Straight to the Points.